So I'm here with Travis Wizard, TWoo, Magic for Good. We are here to talk about tournament prep. I was talking to him a lot about my plan for GP Minneapolis, how to prepare, and it's a lot to take in. So I asked him to share some of his maybe a top 5 things that you can do to prepare. So I'm gonna kind of let him take over here, and I'll try to probe where necessary. But
Yeah.
teach me your
So
ways.
for those of you guys who want to win more at tournaments, obviously it's not for everyone, but some of you do. And just a quick background on me. A lot of people know me as a deck builder, brewer, content producer. I do that, but I've also had a good amount of success in tournaments. I've top aided 2 out of 10 Grand Prix, which is not easy to do. Where did my camera go?
I got you.
There.
Sorry.
What's up? Yeah. So I'm on the West Coast. Tournaments are a little bit smaller, but there's also fewer of them. Seattle, we got one a year, and then there's maybe one in Portland or one in Vancouver. So I really had to pick my spots and maximize each one. I couldn't go to a bunch of them. So I developed some principles that allowed me to improve my chances, and I work with various players, and this stuff definitely works and is helpful. So here's 5 keys to preparing for a tournament. And also, preparing for a tournament is like preparation is king. The difference between amateurs and pros is not in their play that you see that 1% at tournament. It's the 99% of preparation they do ahead of time. And this isn't just for Magic. This is for everything. Like Michael Jordan shows up and dominates. It's because he's practicing different, right?
Yeah, that's
So number
good. Good
five,
stuff. Yeah.
number five. This is kind of arbitrary numbering, but number 5 is getting feedback is super important. You don't need to have someone watch you all the time, but at various stages along the way, speaking with peers or people above or people teaching people below you is super helpful. Getting feedback also means like playing and collecting data, like getting beaten or winning. Feedback isn't just someone telling you like this works, that doesn't work. Collecting data is also a way of getting feedback. So if you want to get feedback, reach out to people and also record your results. Keep track of what's happening. Play. Make sense?
Yeah, it's interesting. The one thing I started doing too is just recording my gameplay on MTGO and then going back and watching it in like 10x speed. And the mistakes are, I mean, when you get tunnel vision when you're playing. So recording it for me was extremely helpful because you could take as much time as you need to analyze a situation and really try to make the best play more often than not.
Yeah, and you make a good point that you can give yourself feedback if you're humble and self-aware. Like it's possible to be your own coach in a lot of ways. So number 5, getting feedback. Number 4, metagaming. Knowing what people are doing, what's going on, what percentage of decks people are playing, what decks match up against certain decks, what decks are perceived as matching up with certain decks, what decks are considered popular or trending, what decks are considered in decline. Super important to just know what other people are doing because if you just show up with something and it's 2 turns too slow for the format, you're just going to get stomped. So a good place to start off with metagaming is go to I like MTG Top 8. Not affiliated with them at all, but they have a good list of what the percentage of the metagame is and top decks, and you can see what people are doing. And that's a good way to start.
Yeah, I found that was really helpful too because the day, so you spend, for me, being a noob about playing a tournament, I spent a lot of time just trying to get familiar with the deck. And then it was like a day before the tournament, and I was like, crap, I have no idea what decks I'm even going to see. Is my deck even any good anymore? And so then I looked at that side and then MTG Goldfish, I think, too. They break
Yep.
down the meta, and then I just kind of combined the two in my head. Like, okay, well, green white humans is probably pretty good, and then that could helped me make different mainboard changes, like at the 11th hour before the tournament.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, I would say we do that a week before, but you know,
yeah.
I mean, better late than never. So number 5, get feedback. Number 4, do the metagame research. Number 3, commit to a strategy. So what we see in tournaments is a lot of decks succeed, right? There was 8 different decks in the top 8 of the last Pro Tour. So what's the best deck? What's the perfect deck, right? There's clearly isn't a best deck or a perfect deck. And what that means is the players who succeed have good decks that are adequate, and then they committed to it. Generally, they committed to it in advance and became specialists with that deck, became very good with that. So a common mistake is to keep searching to break it and find the next deck, which is good for content reasons, I think. But for actual tournament, it's best to just commit to something a week or 2 weeks before. You know, you get feedback and you metagame, and then you figure out like what a few of your favorite options might be, and then you commit to one of them. And that gives you time to really focus on making that list as good as you can and the plans as good as you can. So I have a rule that, I mean, it's breakable, but I pretty much suggest like you have to commit a week before the tournament if you haven't already.
Yeah, it seems like at some point you might suffer paralysis via overanalysis too. At some point you just gotta roll with the date you brought to the dance, or whatever they say, and just try to do the best you can with it.
Yeah, because you can be like very, very mediocre with the best deck, or you could be very, very good with an okay deck, and you'll probably have better results. Although, I mean, if you do the metagaming part correctly, then you have a good deck too.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So getting feedback, metagaming, committing to a strategy. Number 2, planning for each matchup. This is kind of a combination of metagaming and committing to a strategy. At this point, you're making a checklist of the 6 or dozen most important decks that you need to face up, making a plan for each matchup, considering how they're sideboarding against you, considering how you're going to sideboard against them, making a game plan around specific cards, planning for the play versus the draw, planning for what cards they see or don't see, or what cards you might contingency plans if they sideboard in ways you don't expect. And that is really what makes the pros, where they're able to play so fast and it seems like they don't even have to think about things, is because they made a plan. They made that decision 2 weeks ago when they decided that they were going to make that play in that situation. So if you plan everything in advance, it allows you to have everything done. You don't have to make nearly as many decisions. There's not necessarily nearly as much mental wear and tear, and you can focus on stuff like playing the opponent and making sure that they're playing honest and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's one of the mistakes I made, I think, in prep was that I played so many practice matches in hopes that I would get a diverse cross section of the decks I would see. But I think now, looking back, now that you say that, my time would have been better spent with mental matchups, at least some percentage of it. Look at the deck list and just look at your deck list and figure out what the heck is, how they're going to beat you, rather than play game after game after game and just expect that I was going to see a deck.
Yes, you make a great point. You play on Magic Online or at FNM and you have no control over what you get faced. You're probably not going to play against every matchup, and then you need to do something for those other matchups. Either seek those out and specifically test against them by any means, or there's not always time to test against all the fringe decks, but you can think about it for 15 minutes, and that will help out a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, okay, 5, feedback. 4, metagaming. 3, commit to a strategy. 2, plan for each matchup. Number 1, I think, is physical preparation. So what I mean by this is not like you're training for the tournament like Rocky. What I mean is for the weekend of, you get good sleep and you eat good food and you plan out your meals so that you have energy, especially for a Grand Prix. Now, the parallel to this is sports tournaments. If you've ever competed or thought about competing in a sports tournament, say basketball, the last thing you would ever want to do is make tweaks to your shot at 2 a.m. the night before the tournament.
Yeah.
But we think it for Magic that's a good thing to do. When it's like it's sabotage. So, I mean, we want to get everything done the day before, 2 days before, get a good night's sleep. And then for a basketball tournament or something like that, it's usually you're not going to play more than 3 or 4 games in a day, and it's going to last 3 hours or something like that for a long tournament. For a Grand Prix, back-to-back 12-hour days is just crazy. Like, it's way harder than a sports tournament. So it's worth getting a lot of sleep. It's worth getting your, grocery shopping done Friday night or Saturday morning, because you don't know in the tournament what rounds are going to go long, if you're going to be able to eat when you want to eat, if you're going to go to the concession stand and get some garbage food, So that, for me, is a big edge. And again, it's like, this is bonus. You really need to have like a good deck and good play. But if you have a good deck and a good play and you're operating on 2 hours of sleep and no food, you're probably going to fail. So
Yeah, that's I think it's fair. You could argue that it belongs in the one spot, but one thing to give an example of this is I played competitive chess in middle school and high school, and our coach, one of the things he always said about when we would go to these big tournaments like state, where you'd be playing chess all day, 8 rounds of chess. And he would say, like, don't go and eat a foot-long meatball sub in between rounds. You
yeah,
have to eat light. Now I don't know if this is there's science behind this, but what he would say is, well, if you fill your stomach up with all this junk, your body diverts resources to digesting that, and you're not as sharp mentally. He didn't put it quite so, like, I think he probably said something like, the blood goes to your stomach to digest your food, and then your brain doesn't have enough blood, which
yeah,
probably,
that's
Oh, go ahead.
that's 100% true. We know from experience, food coma, right? Like, you
Yeah.
eat a big lunch, you go to sleep. And that is true, that there's kind of a zero-sum blood relationship between the brain and the gut, that the body is, you have the most brain and you think the sharpest when your stomach is the emptiest, actually. You're in that hunter mode. And it's the opposite when your stomach is full. Your body needs to digest it and diverts blood. It's very, very tricky for a Magic tournament because it's all day, so you can never have a sleepy round without probably losing that round. So I mean, the nutrition science is a lot more complex than for a sports tournament, which is why I have a lot of respect for tournament players who do this, because for a basketball tournament, you can eat your meal, you can eat a big breakfast, and maybe you take a nap or in games or between games, and then or you can even intermittent fast. You don't even eat that day until the evening, and that works too. Whereas for Magic, intermittent fasting is just not an option, because you're not going to be able to, you can't fast for a 12-hour tournament. But if you can't eat a big meal either, it's like, what can you do? All right, well, you can, I guess in this situation, grazing makes a lot of sense. That's the conclusion I've come to. I generally don't graze, but for a Magic tournament, I will, because it seems like you can't take a nap, like.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
remember when I would go to these chess tournaments, everyone would meet at like George Webb's, and I would not eat until I was done, because it was so, the first time it happened to me, I remember going to Subway and I ate a meatball sub. I was 4-0, and I came back and I lost my first round. Now, I might have lost that round anyway, but I felt like I made more mistakes. Like you said, the science does back this up, my anecdotal evidence, and I found that's true. You make a good point, of kind point, but what I think you're really trying to say is the food available at a GP is generally complete garbage,
that's
and
also true.
so you don't even have, if you don't plan, you don't have an option to get even like a healthy granola bar or like something light. No, what you have is like fried chicken tenders and a hot dog, and you have 8 minutes to eat it. So if you bring it with you, you can try to minimize the junk
Yeah.
food. I always talk about that in pre-release too. Like, I know pre-release is casual, but a lot of people that watch my channel want to win pre-release. I go to pre-release and I want to win because I want to get a bunch of packs of the new set. And I always talk about, like, okay, you go into a midnight release. You can eat dinner, that's fine, but don't eat like two double cheeseburgers from McDonald's at 11:30 at night and then sit down and think you're going to play your best Magic.
Yeah.
Like, you have to think about what you put in your mouth a little bit. Not that I do that great
Definitely.
outside of Magic, but I am
Yeah.
strict during Magic. I try to be.
It's interesting because there's quality is super important, eating good food, but sequencing is possibly more important. You think about this from Magic perspectives, you know, you want to the way, right? Like if you cast nothing turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, and you try to eat all your food on turn 5, you know, you're gonna have a bad turn 6.
Well played.
Yeah, sequencing, right? You want your turn 5 food play to be good. You want it to be good, but even if it's good, if the sequence is bad, you can still screw yourself. So for me, say that I traveled all the way to a tournament. I'm putting money into flying there and into my cards and putting hours and hours of preparation in. I'm going to take it very seriously. And what I'm going to do Friday night, the first thing I do when I land is go find the nearest grocery store, get all my food for the weekend. And generally, I like to get fruits, vegetables, and nuts, legumes, and dried fruit. So because, you know, not only we get into even more detail. I'll try not to, but there's a glycemic index. Basically, you want to, if you're hungry and you eat something low glycemic index, you don't actually get the energy from that for a long time. So if you're eating low glycemic index, you actually want to eat before you're hungry because it's like a pipeline of energy coming in. So what I'll do is, if I'm in the grazing mode, I will eat these low glycemic index foods once an hour a little bit, even if I'm not hungry. Like, I'll eat one piece of fruit during the round, and then I might have a handful of nuts between the round, and then I'll eat another piece of fruit or, like, you know, or a vegetable or something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I find that to be super, super helpful.
Yeah, I think that that's 5 really, really good tips. And people can also check out your mastermind thing too. I've been kind of following that, and that's become a group of you can kind of fast track a little bit of that by getting in these Facebook groups or groups like your Magic Mastermind group, where people can get this kind of sage advice too from people in a faster, more digestible way.
Yeah. I mean, we just briefly, we help players more in depth than this with their prepare for specific tournaments and so on. And there's me and a couple other pros, Ben Friedman, Adam Yurchik. If you guys are interested in it, email me at woobrews@gmail.com or send me a message anywhere.
Yeah, hey, and I know you're a busy man, and I appreciate these talks, and I know the subscribers are really liking it. So we're gonna keep it up as long as we both can, for sure. And if you guys want to hear something from Trav, let me know in the comments down below. I mean, we often just riff back and forth, and there's any number of things that we can talk
we
about.
could go Magic. We could go another direction, or community Magic. I mean, but that's a touchy subject. If you guys want to hear it, it's a possibility. Won't say for certain, but I hope you found this helpful. Thanks so much for having me on. Love your channel. Love what you're doing.
All right, yeah, thanks so much for being on, and I'll put a link to Travis's YouTube channel in the description below as well. Make sure you guys go check it out. He's uploading. He's an animal with content. I think I see videos up almost every day, so hopefully it doesn't burn out.
I've never missed a day, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Yeah, so daily content.
Yes.
From Travis. So that's always good. So thanks a lot, everyone, and we'll talk to you again real soon. What's up, and thanks for watching this video. I produce all different kinds of content, so if you haven't yet, click on my face to subscribe. If you want to watch more videos, I've got some sweet playlists, including this one, where I open up every fat pack ever created. I've also got this one over here where I open just about anything vintage and old and expensive for your enjoyment. And all this is made possible by the awesome backers at our Patreon, which is linked in the description of every video. Hop on over there, check it out, see if it's something you might want to consider. If not, sit back, enjoy, and I'll still love you.